If you could see yourself through the eyes of the person you are capable of becoming, you would cry. Not because you're weak, not because you're emotional, but because you would finally realize how much potential you have been hiding from yourself. You would finally realize that the biggest thing standing between you and the life you want is not your past, not your circumstances, not other people, and not bad luck. It's the version of yourself that you've decided to keep carrying. And I know that sounds harsh, but sometimes the truth is supposed to be uncomfortable because comfort is exactly what keeps people trapped. Every day you wake up and tell yourself the same story. You tell yourself you're not good enough. You tell yourself you're not attractive enough. You tell yourself you're not smart enough. You tell yourself you're too late. You tell yourself you're too damaged. You tell yourself you've made too many mistakes. And then you wonder why your life never changes. How can your life change when you're repeating the same identity every single day? How can your future be different if you keep introducing yourself to the world as the same person who failed yesterday? At some point, you have to understand that your life follows your identity. You don't get what you want, you get what you believe you are. If deep down you believe you're unworthy, you'll sabotage opportunities. If deep down you believe you're not lovable, you'll accept disrespect. If deep down you believe you're not capable, you'll quit before you even begin. Your beliefs create your behavior. Your behavior creates your reality. And that's why rebuilding yourself starts with one decision. The decision to stop identifying with the version of yourself that no longer serves you. Most people think change happens when motivation arrives. They're wrong. Change happens when you're tired of making excuses, tired of feeling stuck, tired of looking at your own potential and knowing you're wasting it, tired of watching life pass by while you're waiting for confidence. Confidence is not something you wait for. Confidence is something you build, brick by brick, promise by promise, action by action. The person you admire didn't wake up one morning transformed. They became transformed because they made thousands of decisions that nobody saw. The gym session nobody applauded. The book nobody knew they read. The early mornings nobody witnessed. The sacrifices nobody appreciated. The discipline nobody celebrated. That's where transformation lives. Not in motivation, not in inspiration, in consistency. And here's something you need to hear. You are not supposed to love every part of yourself right now. You are not supposed to be satisfied with every habit. You are not supposed to accept every weakness because acceptance without action becomes a prison. There is a difference between accepting yourself as a human being and settling for a version of yourself that you know is capable of more. You can love yourself and still want to improve. You can appreciate yourself and still demand growth. You can respect yourself and still refuse to stay the same. And in fact, real self-love requires growth because if you truly cared about yourself, why would you allow yourself to stay in a place that is making you miserable? Think about that. If someone you loved was destroying their future, wouldn't you try to help them? If someone you loved was settling for less than they deserved, wouldn't you encourage them to do better? So why are you treating yourself differently? Why are you accepting standards for yourself that you would never accept for someone you care about? Why are you protecting your excuses more than you're protecting your dreams? At some point, you have to stop feeling sorry for yourself, not because your pain isn't real. Your pain is real. Your struggles are real. Your disappointments are real, but your future is real too. And your future doesn't care how many reasons you have. It only responds to what you do next. The world is full of people who had valid excuses, people who had difficult childhoods, people who faced rejection, people who experienced failure, people who experienced heartbreak, people who experienced loss. And some of those people used their pain as an excuse to stop, while others used their pain as fuel to grow. The difference wasn't the pain. The difference was the decision. And right now you are one decision away from changing everything. Not changing everything overnight, but changing the direction, because that's how transformation works. Nobody becomes extraordinary in a day. They become extraordinary one day at a time. You need to stop looking for massive changes and start respecting small victories. One workout, one chapter, one healthy meal. One difficult conversation, one promise kept, one step forward. Those things seem small until they compound. And when they compound, they become a completely different life. Imagine meeting yourself 5 years from now, not the version of yourself that keeps making excuses, the version that stayed disciplined, the version that faced fears, the version that stopped procrastinating, the version that stopped waiting, the version that stopped doubting. What would that person tell you? Would they thank you for quitting? Would they thank you for staying comfortable? Would they thank you for giving up on your dreams? Of course not. They would beg you to keep going, because they know what's waiting on the other side of your consistency. The life you want is not impossible. The problem is that you're trying to reach it while carrying an identity that doesn't belong there. You cannot build a new life while protecting old habits. You cannot create a better future while repeating old behaviors. You cannot become someone new while constantly defending who you've been. At some point, the old version of you has to go. Not because that version was bad, but because that version completed its purpose. The person who doubted themselves taught you lessons. The person who made mistakes taught you lessons. The person who got hurt taught you lessons. The person who failed taught you lessons. Thank them, learn from them, but stop living as them. You don't need another year of self-hatred. You don't need another year of comparing yourself. You don't need another year of waiting for permission. You need a decision that from this day forward, your beats will match your goals. Your actions will match your dreams. Your standards will match your potential. Because rebuilding yourself is not an act of punishment. It's an act of respect. Every workout is respect. Every healthy choice is respect. Every boundary is respect. Every disciplined action is respect. Every promise you keep to yourself is respect. And the more you respect yourself, the less you tolerate anything that takes you away from your future. One day people will look at you and call you lucky. They'll suddenly see the results. They'll suddenly see the confidence. They'll suddenly see the success. They'll suddenly see the transformation. But they won't see the mornings you didn't want to get up. They won't see the days you wanted to quit. They won't see the battles you fought inside your own mind. They won't see the moments when nobody believed in you. And that's okay, because this journey was never about proving anything to them. It was about proving something to yourself. That you can become the person you've always wanted to be. That you can rebuild your life. That you can rewrite your story. And most importantly, that the person staring back at you in the mirror is not your limitation. They are your opportunity. So stop hating yourself. Stop insulting yourself. Stop carrying an identity that keeps you small. The old version has suffered enough. It's time to build someone stronger, someone wiser, someone more disciplined, someone more confident, someone who finally understands that their future depends on what they do today. And today is the perfect day to begin. There is a version of you that already exists in your mind. You know exactly who I'm talking about. The version that wakes up early even when they don't feel like it. The version that keeps promises to themselves. The version that walks into a room without needing approval. The version that isn't constantly worried about what people think. The version that chooses growth over comfort. The version that respects themselves too much to settle. That version isn't a fantasy. That version is a choice. The problem is that every day you are voting for a different identity. Every action is a vote. Every excuse is a vote. Every habit is a vote. Every decision is a vote. When you choose discipline, you're voting for the stronger version of yourself. When you choose excuses, you're voting for the weaker version. When you choose courage, you're voting for confidence. When you choose avoidance, you're voting for fear. Your future is being built by the votes you cast every single day. And most people never realize this. They think confidence arrives first and action comes second. But confidence comes from action. Nobody feels confident before they've proven something to themselves. Think about it. The person who is these confident speaking in public wasn't born that way. They practiced. The person who is confident in relationships wasn't born that way. They learned. The person who is confident pursuing their dreams wasn't born that way. They took risks. Confidence is earned. Confidence is evidence. Confidence is the result of repeatedly showing yourself that you can handle difficult things. That's why waiting to feel ready is one of the biggest traps in life. You will never feel completely ready. You will never feel completely prepared. You will never feel completely fearless. And if you're waiting for that moment, you'll spend your entire life waiting. Growth happens when you move despite uncertainty. Growth happens when you act before you're comfortable. Growth happens when you trust yourself enough to take the next step, even when you can't see the entire staircase. Most people want certainty before action. Successful people create certainty through action. That's the difference. And let's talk about something nobody wants to hear. Sometimes you are the reason you're stuck. Not your family, not your ex, not your circumstances. I know that's difficult to hear, but it's also empowering because if you're the reason you're stuck, that means you're also the reason you can move forward. Personal responsibility is not punishment, it's power. The moment you stop blaming everything outside of yourself, you reclaim control. You stop waiting. You stop complaining. You stop wishing. You start building because builders focus on solutions. Victims focus on problems. Builders ask, what can I do? Victims ask, why is this happening to me? Builders create opportunities. Victims wait for opportunities, and your future will be determined by which mindset you choose. I want you to think about how much energy you've wasted criticizing yourself. How many hours have you spent calling yourself lazy? How many hours have you spent telling yourself you're not enough? How many hours have you spent comparing yourself to people who aren't even living your life? Now imagine if all that energy had been invested into improving yourself. Imagine if every negative thought became positive action. Imagine if every insecurity became motivation. Imagine if every disappointment became determination. You would be unstoppable because the truth is, self-hatred has never improved anyone. Self-hatred doesn't create discipline. Self-hatred doesn't create confidence. Self-hatred doesn't create success. It creates paralysis. It creates fear. It creates shame. And shame keeps people stuck. Growth comes from honesty, not hatred. Honesty says, I need to improve. Hatred says, I am worthless. Those are not the same thing. One creates action, the other destroys it. You can look at yourself honestly and still believe in your potential. You can acknowledge your weaknesses and still respect yourself. You can recognize your mistakes and still know you're capable of greatness because your mistakes are things you've done. They are not who you are. Your failures are experiences. They are not your identity. Your bad days are moments. They are not your future. Stop turning temporary situations into permanent labels. Stop defining yourself by your lowest moments. Stop introducing yourself to the world through your wounds. You are more than what happened to you. You are more than what someone said about you. You are more than the mistakes you've made. And once you understand that, everything changes. You stop carrying unnecessary weight. You stop dragging old versions of yourself into new opportunities. You stop reliving stories that no longer serve you. Because here's the truth. The person you want to become cannot be created while you're constantly looking backward. You cannot drive toward your future while staring at your past. Eventually, you have to release it, not because it didn't matter, but because it no longer owns you. Forgive yourself, not because everything was okay, but because you deserve freedom. Forgive yourself for the opportunities you missed. Forgive yourself for the mistakes you made. Forgive yourself for the times you didn't know better. Forgive yourself for being human. Then move forward, because life is not asking who you used to be. Life is asking who you're becoming. Every morning you wake up, life gives you another opportunity, another chance to choose discipline, another chance to choose growth, another chance to choose courage. Another chance to choose yourself. And one day those small choices become an entirely different person. One day you wake up and realize you're no longer the person who used to quit. You're no longer the person who used to settle. You're no longer the person who used to doubt themselves every second. You've become stronger. You've become wiser. You've become calmer. You've become more focused. You've become someone who trusts themselves. And trust is one of the greatest gifts you can ever give yourself. Because once you trust yourself, you stop needing constant reassurance. You stop depending on external validation. You stop letting every opinion affect your mood. You stop letting rejection define your worth. You understand something powerful. The opinions of others are information. They are not instructions. Not everyone will understand your journey. Not everyone will support your growth. Not everyone will believe in your vision. That's okay. Your job isn't to convince them. Your job is to continue. Continue when it's difficult. Continue when it's boring. Continue when nobody notices. Continue when progress feels slow. Continue because the person you're becoming is worth the effort. The strongest people are not those who never struggle. The strongest people are those who keep rebuilding again and again and again. They lose and rebuild. They fail and rebuild. They get rejected and rebuild. They get hurt and rebuild because they understand a simple truth. Life will test you, but every test is also an invitation to become stronger, an invitation to become wiser, an invitation to become the person your future requires. So stop asking whether you can change. You can stop asking whether you're capable. You are. Stop asking whether it's too late. It's not. The real question is this: how much longer are you willing to stay the same? How much longer will you keep living beneath your potential? How much longer will you keep choosing comfort over growth? How much longer will you keep postponing the life you know you're capable of creating? The clock is moving whether you act or not. The years are passing whether you grow or not. Your future is approaching whether you're prepared or not. So make a decision, a real decision. Not a temporary burst of motivation, a commitment to becoming someone you respect, a commitment to keeping promises to yourself, a commitment to building a life that reflects your potential, because the person you become over the next year depends on the choices you make after this moment. Not tomorrow, not next week, now. This is where rebuilding starts, not when conditions are perfect, not when motivation arrives, not when fear disappears. Right here, right now, stand up, take responsibility, let go of the old story, leave the excuses behind. Forgive yourself for the past and begin building the version of yourself that has been waiting for you all along. Your future is not asking for perfection. Your future is asking for commitment. Give it that commitment and watch your entire life transform.